Hello, it's Scott Manley here, looking at something called Astronaut Simulator, which oddly enough simulates the experience of being an astronaut flying around in space on a manned maneuvering unit. It's really rather simple, to be honest. You just have your controls in 6 degrees of freedom. You have all these different keyboard controls. You can see 2 sets, so it's like playing a piano. There's some extra keys for looking around with your helmet and things like that. And then you have a bunch of waypoints. So the way this is played is you basically fly around some landmark in space and you fly to all these locations and things happen. Now, just to give you an example, there's the Agena docking target you get to rendezvous with, which is interesting because that was from the Apollo era. Then you get to take a look at the Galileo probe and mess up its high gain antenna. Magellan, of course, before it went off to Venus. Then we have Skylab, which had fell to Earth long before the shuttle was ever launched with the manned maneuvering unit. A little further forward and you get to break Hubble, or rather get to launch Hubble and then curse the mirror people when they realise the thing's the wrong shape. And finally we have the Russian Mir space station, where you get to fly around the Mir space station and try to fix things. So I think I'm going to take a look at one of these. Okay, and here we are in the cargo bay of the Endeavour, and this is of course rather anachronistic because the Endeavour was a space shuttle which was constructed to replace Challenger. And after the Challenger mission, after the Challenger failure, NASA became a little less gung-ho and they stopped flying the MMUs because, well, after review they realised that everything you do in an MMU you could do with regular spacewalks. Because I'm just pitching up to admire the planet below me and the Mir space station, which I have to say looks rather minimatar in this game. And that's not intended as an insult, I'll be very clear. It just looks very kind of brown and with panels sticking out and stuff like that. I'm presuming that meant that it goes much, much faster than the sleek space shuttle. I mean, the space shuttle looks kind of galanty if you ask me. Okay, let's try and hit this docking port here. So we have to fly up to this. The idea is, you're flying from one waypoint to another, and there's a little bit of flavor text to tell you what you're supposed to do in each location. So here I'm going to inspect the multiple docking adapter, which as you get close you realise is very, very pixelated. So the graphics are obviously originally intended for a mobile game. The game has no configuration that I can find, so it automatically loads up in full screen resolution, which for me is 1440p. I don't have any option to switch it back into windowed mode, which is, that hurts me a great deal. There's no anti-aliasing, which, I have to say, I know a little bit about iOS, Apple hardware, and I know for a fact that you can get decent anti-aliasing if you want it. Anyway, let's zip around here. I'm trying to get here to reconnect the auxiliary nitrogen tank. And I shall be careful not to use precision mode. Okay, I'm joking. I'm pretty sure the guy that writes this is not... English was not his first language and he didn't want to spend forever fixing all the minor spelling mistakes. But we're located over the gas tanks, I guess, right now. And there, we've finished that. Now we have to repair the acquisition sun sensor assembly, which is presumably something that's used to keep the spacecraft oriented, or at least make sure the panels are oriented correctly to maximize their solar power intake. Now, below me, the planet Earth does not rotate as I'm flying over it at 7 kilometers per second. Instead, it's loaded at a slightly different location depending upon which level you're running. I think usually I've seen chunks of North America and maybe Central America, Brazil, like that, and things like that. I'll say that normally I don't think you would see this much Earth or this much of the Earth's surface. I think the viewpoint is much higher than the space shuttle ever went, but I could be wrong on that. It's obviously hard to really experience what an astronaut sees when I'm sitting at a desk. Okay, now check the solar array surface tiles. Where is that? So if you look on the left panel has a couple of compasses that show you the top view and the side view here. Okay, so that means it should be in front of me here. I suspect that it might actually be hiding underneath that solar panel. There it goes, playing peekaboo with my tasks here. Those cunning Russians have hidden the bits I need to fix on the other side of the solar panels. All of the levels play like this, right? They're all exactly the same format. You start out, you fly to a green marker to leave the cargo bay, then you fly to a bunch of red markers and then hold still while you work on them. Finally, for task 7 or 8, I think it's task 8, you will fly around 5 different blue locations checking for debris. There we go. Bingo! Okay, so I think the whole thing probably works pretty well on the iOS versions, which, as I said, they're $2 from the App Store. They'll work on any modern iPad or iPhone. There's the Endeavour. The Endeavour being, of course, named after the British ship that carried Captain Cook on his voyage of discovery, which is why the Endeavour is spelt with a U and not in the American styling with the U removed, right? So Americans or people from the United States of America, let's say, because I'm pretty sure Canadians keep the U in there, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, the people from the United States generally spell Endeavour without a U, and it's quite common to see displays in museums and stuff talking about the shuttle Endeavour, and somebody has corrected it and removed the U. I always get a little bit of a smile from that because, you know, just shows people aren't necessarily doing their research and relying on computers too much. Oh, I'm a terrible person, am I? Okay, where is the second solar panel? Right there. Right there with the big red spinny thing. You can also see this debris kind of floating around. That's obviously to provide some sort of speed indication for people that are playing the game, because without it it's actually hard to figure out what way you're pointing. Now I'm looking around with a mouse here, but you can actually use Oculus Rift with this, and I think that is possibly the one reason why you might actually be interested in the PC version, because, you know, this would be a great thing for Oculus Rift if you're wanting to just experience floating above the planet Earth and zipping around on your MMU, on your space jetpack thing. Then that would be great. And actually, you know, judging by the games that I've seen revealed today at the Oculus Rift, press conference or whatever presentation, I think that the graphics, the mediocre graphics, actually the terrible graphics in this, wouldn't seem out of place given what I saw at the Oculus presentation. It seems that a lot of the games are really cutting back on their graphical quality simply because when you're trying to render twice as many displays and render it at a high enough frame rate to make sure that you get smooth gameplay the entire time to avoid motion sickness, you do have to make sacrifices in terms of graphics quality. So this might actually, there might be a real case for this. You know, it's lightweight, it's simple, it's not something you're going to play for extreme excitement, let's say. Although I am getting rather concerned about my electrical power getting rather low here. The electricity, I think, is largely used for the stability control, so you have a key which basically stops your rotation, stops your transition, and when you press that it reduces your electrical power. NOx is your... well, the MMUs used cold nitrogen. That meant they basically had a cylinder that was pressurized with nitrogen, and that would be what they ejected. They didn't have any chemical reactions going on. It was an inert thruster. So I don't know why it says NOx. I have no idea what's going on there. But oxygen, obviously, that makes more sense. Although the limit with spacesuits isn't generally the amount of oxygen, it's the ability to remove carbon dioxide that you exhale. And not oxygen is, used at or is consumed at a rather low rate. The more dangerous rate thing is the rate at which carbon dioxide builds up, and if you can't scrub that out, you will die long before you run out of oxygen. You'll die due to basically carbon dioxide toxicity. That's of course the whole scene in Apollo 13 where they're trying to hook up the lithium hydroxide canister from the command module and make it work in the lunar module, right? That kind of technology is still used in some spacesuits, I believe. I'll also point out, by the way, that in the background, the music you'll hear, a lot of it is actually already in Kerbal Space Program because it's all by Kevin MacLeod. The Capcom communications are, of course, all from NASA. They're nice and atmospheric early on, but after a few missions you're going to realise that you've heard all this before, and it does start to get a little repetitive. But wow, what a beautiful view of the Earth there, and that sticky outy thing. I'm not sure, that's a tower of some sort. There we go, there is the Endeavour, that's where we're headed home. See the little green marker, we have to return there, and then we move to the little bit at the side of the docking bay there. I'm not sure what the space shuttle brought with it, but it does look like it has the docking adapter that it uses for docking with the Mir space station. The new number 5, whatever there, okay. So you can, I look around with the mouse and then of course I press C to recenter the display here. Anyway, look, this is Astronaut Simulator. A lot of people asked me to look at it. The developer actually sent me a key, and I think I have a couple of spare keys I might give out if people are give me a good enough reason. It's $6 on Steam, although I say that you can look at it on the iPhone or the iPad, and that's a little cheaper here. I'm just going to try and rotate myself around to a reasonable rotation for docking with this. And oh, yep, out of electrical power. So now I cannot arrest my rotation and everything automatically. I have to fly it all manually. Good thing I've become pretty good at it by now. Okay, there we go. Just rotate. This is what happens when you have 6 degrees of freedom. It gets very hard for you to map your fingers to the correct key. Okay, I'm just going to pull backwards and go right back in here. And that'll be us. So yeah, Astronaut Simulator, it's on Steam. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.